travel from talking about one of last year's grand finalists in Brisbane to another in Collingwood. Is it time to get ahead of the game a bit and have some tough discussions about the Magpies next few years? We sometimes have a look at clubs when they're sort of a bit lower down the ladder and they always release a 5-year plan of what they want to achieve in the next 5 years. I'm really interested into what Collingwood's one is right now. Having won the flag and now sort of, are we saying that their season is done?
The season's done.
Okay, so if we're saying the season's done...
I think the season is done.
We need to look to the future a bit. And when you look to the future and you look at a club like Collingwood, you see... Well, there are a few names here. Let's go through them. Howe, Pendlebury, Sidebottom, Elliott, Myercheck, Mitchell, Hoskin Elliott, Crisp, and maybe Mason Cox were all best 23 players, I think, when fit, and they're all over 30. You've got a team like West Coast you can look back to in 2018 after they won that premiership, and they kept going. They kept trying to reach with these older guys. And we talked about on the pod about how there was this cliff incoming where they weren't sort of playing for the future enough, and lo and behold, they're sort of down the bottom of the ladder again. It looks like Collingwood have a similar issue where they're a bit top heavy with their best 22. They have just one player under 25 playing above their relative rating for their age at the moment, and that's Nick Dacos, and he's 21 years old. He's a generational talent. Yep. He's the guy that you need to be building around. So does Collingwood need to have some tough discussions in the immediate future about what their next 3 to 4 years looks like? Do they reload and go again with this older crop? Or do they look at the future and see Tasmania coming into the competition in 2028 and go, maybe we need to build for the Dacos era?
That is, you just said it then. Tasmania, this is something that Jared Barker has been speaking about for 18 months now. You don't want to be in the position where you need to be drafting when Tasmania comes in. You're gonna look what happens with when the expansion sides come in. Those that need top talent, you miss out, and then your rebuild takes far longer than it probably should. I wonder, I probably should be throwing this question to you because I think you're quite strong on this. But are we overreacting? You can look at Collingwood's record this year: 8 wins, 8 losses, 2 draws. Bang, average. As average as you can get. But are we overreacting a touch based on last week's performance, the 11-goal loss to Hawthorn?
No.
Because there haven't been too many... They haven't played well, and I guess the standard they set last year was so high. They haven't been poor this year. I think it's just where we expected them to be top 4 locks again. So I don't know if it's a bit too harsh.
It's a valid question if it's a knee-jerk reaction, but I think when we take a step back, look at the list profile firstly, but then also look at what the list has been able to achieve over the course of the year. And Christian's got some numbers for us about those guys playing above their relative rating for their age. And the numbers are a bit stark. It's all of these older guys, and Collingwood isn't giving the opportunity to the younger guys to play enough games and show what they've got. And they also probably don't have the quality in that younger brigade coming up. And so you've got a bit of a vacuum where you've got these older guys and then maybe a couple of these guys around that sort of 21 to 24 mark. But either side of that, it's a bit skint.
So what do? You're not getting much value or any value for anyone over 30.
No, of course
forget
not.
Forget
so who
about
are the guys
those
in that mid-range? You're looking at Darcy Moore, the skipper. You're not trading him. You got Braden Maynard, 28.
So what are you going to get for Braden? Are Collingwood willing to just say, thank you, Braden, for your service, premiership
These
player?
are the tough conversations clubs need to have.
Well, should they be having that conversation
Absolutely
with Braden
they
Maynard?
should. Jordan De
Or
Goey.
about Braden Maynard. What are they getting for Jordan De Goey or Braden Maynard? I don't know.
They're getting back on the draft board. They're getting young talent into the club ahead of the curve. Christian, you've looked at some of the numbers in terms of players and their relative ratings and how they're performing, compared to their age. And some of the stuff it's tough reading.
Yeah, so the guys that, again, you've got to play half the season. So guys that have played at least 9 games so far this season sort of get qualified into relative ratings. And it's looking at all your rating points in your position at your age and comparing you to the exact same players in that position and age going back to 2010. So Nick Dacos as a midfielder is outperforming a 21-year-old midfielder by 80%. So he's got a relative ratings of plus 80%.
He's like two of them out there.
Yeah, almost. Darcy Moore's about 20% above a 28-year-old key defender. And then some of these guys are between 0 and 10%, but still in the positives. Maynard, 28. Darcy Cameron, who's 29. Josh Dacos, who's in that 26-year-old bracket. This is age at the end of the year. Jeremy Howe, 34. Jack Crisp, 31. Scott Brindlebury will be 36. And still Sidebottom, 33. That is all their players that are outperforming for their age in their position. So, as you just said, one's 21, one's 26. all the other guys that they're sort of filtered through and playing, none of them are sort of playing at expectation or above expectation.
So what about the guys 26 and under who are also playing and have played enough to get relative ratings? What are their ratings like?
Yeah, so Harvey Harrison's probably the one that's the closest. He's actually negative 0.5% below what he should be.
So he's playing at standard.
With a few sub-affected games. So I think that's a pretty good rating for him. This isn't 100x, so this does sort of, if you don't play much game time, it does sort of screw you a little bit, but he's still close. And then the four guys that are well down this year have probably proven in the past that they can play well, but it goes to your point, is it time to maybe move on from them, or do you try to keep them and get them back up? Bro McCreary is actually 17% where he should be as a general forward. Again,
17% below?
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, few sub-affected games there. Bobby Hill, negative 16% below where he should be. Quainer, negative 20%, and Lipinski, I think, was negative 22%.
And this is not to their own standards, this is to the age.
To the age, playing in your position at that age of what you should be outputting. So Quainer has been in the positive. Bobby Hill has been in the positive in previous years. It's just where they are this year. But it's all, as you said, it's all happening at once. When you look at Collingwood as a whole, it's all their older guys are still outperforming. The younger guys who probably did step up last year, at the moment it looks like 1 year out of the box. Something like Bobby Hill, he's been great in probably 2 or 3 games where you see it, he can be a match changer, but he just hasn't been able to put it together.
So this is a conversation that I think, some Collingwood fans will be like, okay, that's worth listening to and considering. Others will be quite angry at this sort of stuff. Oh, move on stars, move on premiership players. Can't believe you want to rebuild when you're still within a window.
I'm not against.
But these are the tough conversations that clubs have failed to have in the past, and it's come back to bite.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's as similar to the Eagles situation as you might think or have suggested.
No, shades of, yeah.
But my question that I'd throw back to you is, who is on Collingwood's list that they can get value for this off season,
and this
that they would not someone that they would be willing to trade? They're not trading Nick Dacos. They're not trading Darcy Moore. They're not trading Josh Dacos.
No.
So who are they trading?
Well,
it's Maynard and De Goey.
This is what I think everyone in the media always has these discussions and things. Jordan De Goey is a name you throw up, and you go, okay, could Collingwood move on? High value, might be able to get something from. But I think we sit there and we quite often forget that someone has to take on his salary. So
exactly
and we're quite removed from, and this is, I spoke about it 3 or 4 weeks ago, the amount of work list managers and draft and recruiters do to sort of get your list and everything in order. Collingwood, and I don't know how it works, you speak to enough player managers, but Collingwood need to know, is this the off-season to move De Goey? Is there enough clubs to come with enough salary cap to actually give us a bid for De Goey?
There will
Because if we move on from De Goey this year and there's only 2 clubs that can really fit him in the salary cap, that gives us 2 possible deals that we work out. Who knows? And I got no idea. Maybe next year there might be 8 clubs at the moment that could fit De Goey in at 900 grand a year. And it's sort of like, well, if we trade him this year, we got 2 options. If we trade him next year, we might have 7 different options, and we might actually have more coming back. So very easy to sit here and say who should they trade, but I think you need to know the other way of what are the clubs willing to pay up for.
But to your point, when you say who, it's a great point, because you look at some of the names in that tradable range of age, and it's more. You're not getting rid of him. Oleg Markov, don't know what the value is there. Maynard, I think, has value. Frampton has sort of just come into the club. Ash Johnson has underperformed. Lockie Schultz has underperformed and only just come into the club. Lipinski, we mentioned. Josh Dacos, we mentioned. Nathan Kruger is 25. Joe Richards, 24, has played a few games. Murphy's retired.
I actually think someone who could have a bit of value is Jack Crisp. Now, he was in that first band. You said he's only 30, so
yes.
he's not 33, 34. But we know how durable he is. He's played every game for 10 seasons or whatever it is. So maybe he's someone. He's a pretty honest player. He's dependable, consistent, reliable. Maybe a team that is looking to add just something extra, a bit of pace, a bit of someone who can break a line.
Selling him a little bit short. He was a number 1 rated player across the finals last year, so he's a bit more than serviceable. He could be a star, but yeah.
He's not a star. Jack Crisp is not a star.
He was a star in the finals.
Okay, he was a star for...
Semantics.
But he's not a star, Jack Crisp. Maybe he is someone that has value. Maybe he is. I think Jack Crisp has more value than just about every person you reeled off.
I think, and that's fair, but you also need to then weigh into account how many years are you getting out of someone like that. Maybe 3? And so maybe that is worth... But maybe
a team.
Collingwood needs to get draft points in now.
But maybe a side that is coming up. It looks at, I don't know, maybe Hawthorn. Say maybe he's a guy that we need.
Yeah,
I don't know, but a side that is on the way up could look at someone like that and think, We are happy with a 3 or 4 year window. But I don't know. I just look at all you had the list and you reeled off, a dozen names. There aren't many there outside of Maynard and De Goey. And then
That's great, but those are two pieces you could theoretically move. I guess what I'm going to ask back to you is, can you see my point that there's a crossroad coming for Collingwood, similar to other teams in the past, where some tough decisions need to be made?
I think it's quite possible. I mean, there's, several of those players that you said that are in the best 22, the older guys, are going to be gone at the end of this year, definitely.
Or the next year.
And then the following year, probably the rest of them are gone too. I think it can happen. And the extraordinary part is, this has got to be one of the shortest from the bottom to the top and then back down again. Like, it's all happened in under 3 years.
What a roller coaster.
So I can see it happening. I agree with you. They need to get on the front foot. I just don't see that many players on the list that they'd be willing to trade.
But willing, I mean, that's the tough conversation you might need to have.
But I'm not saying I'm not saying that they got 10 players that they're like, we're not trading. The ones they're not trading more. They're not trading the Dacos boys.
That's it.
But then so put them aside. Then you look at everyone else, and there's like, okay, there's Maynard and there's De Goey. That's it in terms of who has value. And I think Chris, you could probably throw in there too. You're not getting. What are you getting for Kruger?
Brody,
what are you getting?
Maybe a year for two for someone.
I don't think you're not getting a.
And then you look to the younger brigade.
The fifth pick in a draft for Brody Myercheck. Like, you're just not. And then it's so. I think I
deal
agree
what
with
you can and get value from what you can.
I agree with that sentiment, but I just don't think they're in a position. I don't think they have that much.
Premiership players, thank you for your service so much. You'll always be part of this. Yeah. But as a club, we need to look at the next 3, 4, 5 years with another club coming and make some tough decisions. And I know that's going to ruffle some feathers around, but bookmark this and see where we land in 4 or 5 years, depending on which way they go. Because I think it's an interesting conversation to have nonetheless.